Daddy is hurting Mommy. Please, you have to help her." The words shattered the silence of the most dangerous office on the East Coast. Lorenzo King, white American mafia boss, collector of debts, and destroyer of enemies, stood frozen behind his mahogany desk, whiskey glass suspended mid-air, staring at the impossible sight before him. A child, soaked to the bone, no older than 6. Her pink jacket clung to her small frame, rain dripping onto the polished hardwood floor of his penthouse office above King's lounge. Her sneakers squeaked as she shifted, clutching something in her trembling fist. Her eyes, once terrified, pleading, locked onto his with the kind of desperate trust that should never be placed in a man like him. How did she get past his guards, past Reed, his right-hand man who'd killed for less than a security breach, past the steel doors and coded elevators that kept the world at bay? None of that mattered now. "What's your name?" Lorenzo's voice came out rougher than he intended. He lowered the gun he'd instinctively reached for, setting it back on the desk. "Lily?" She choked on the word, water and tears mixing on her cheeks. "Mommy said, if something really bad happened, I should find you. She gave me this." She thrust forward a soggy business card, King's Lounge, his restaurant, the legitimate front for everything else he controlled. On the back, handwritten in faded ink, an address, and a name he hadn't heard in 7 years. Elena. His chest tightened like someone had wrapped steel cables around his ribs. Elena Martinez. The girl who'd promised to wait for him. The girl he'd left behind when his father dragged him deeper into the family business. The girl who disappeared without a trace when he finally came back to find her. "Where is she?" His voice turned to gravel. "Where's your mother?" "Home. He's so angry this time." Lily's voice cracked. "He was yelling and there was so much glass, and Mommy told me to run. And I didn't want to leave her, but she made me promise." "Reed!" Lorenzo's voice cut through the room like a blade. The door opened instantly. Reed, 6'3", tattoos crawling up his neck, eyes that had seen too much, appeared, gun drawn, scanning for threats. His gaze dropped to the little girl. "Get the car," Lorenzo said, already moving around the desk. "Now." Reed didn't ask questions. He disappeared. Lorenzo knelt in front of Lily, careful to keep his hands visible, non-threatening. Up close, he saw it, the curve of her jaw, the defiant tilt of her chin even through the fear, the dark hair that curled when wet. She looked like someone he used to know. "Lily, I need you to be brave just a little longer. Can you do that?" She nodded, lower lip trembling. "Good girl." He stood, grabbing his jacket from the chair. "We're going to get your mom, and nobody is going to hurt either of you again." Behind them, the city stretched out through floor-to-ceiling windows, rain streaking down the glass like tears. Somewhere out there, in a house Lorenzo had never seen, a woman he'd once loved was fighting for her life, and he was about to walk back into a past he thought was buried. The question was, would she even want him there? The black SUV tore through rain-slicked streets, headlights cutting through the darkness. Lorenzo gripped the wheel with white knuckles, jaw set, eyes fixed on the road. Reed sat in the passenger seat, checking his weapon with practiced efficiency. In the back, Lily was wrapped in Lorenzo's suit jacket, far too big for her, sleeves hanging past her hands, shivering despite the heat blasting from the vents. "How far?" Lorenzo asked, voice tight. 2 miles, Lily whispered. The blue house, the one with the broken fence. Lorenzo's mind raced. 7 years. 7 years since he'd last seen Elena's face, heard her voice, felt her hand in his. 7 years since the night his father had dragged him to his first family meeting, and he'd realized there was no getting out. No beach house, no new life. Just blood and business. He'd gone back for her 3 months later, pocket full of cash he'd earned doing things he tried not to think about. But her apartment was empty, her phone disconnected. Her friends wouldn't talk to him, or couldn't. He'd searched for 6 months before accepting the truth. She was gone, and he'd driven her away. Now she was back, or maybe she'd never really left. Maybe she'd just learned to hide from him. There! Lily pointed at a small, run-down house, squatting between 2 vacant lots. The porch light flickered. A window glowed orange from inside. And even over the sound of rain and engine, Lorenzo heard it. Shouting, a man's voice, slurred and vicious. A woman's scream, suddenly cut short. Lorenzo slammed the brakes, throwing the SUV into park before it fully stopped. Reed was already out, moving toward the house with tactical precision. "Stay in the car," Lorenzo ordered, turning to Lily. "Lock the doors. Don't open them for anyone but me or Reed. Understand?" "You'll save her?" Lily's eyes were impossibly wide. "You promise?" Lorenzo hesitated. He'd learned long ago not to make promises he couldn't keep. But something in that little girl's face, the same stubborn hope he'd once seen in Elena's, made him nod. "I promise." He was out the door before he could second-guess himself. The front door wasn't locked. Lorenzo pushed it open, and the scene inside hit him like a physical blow. Overturned furniture, shattered bottles, the sour stink of cheap alcohol and older violence. A man, mid-30s, unshaven, eyes wild with rage and drink, stood in the center of the cramped living room, fist raised. On the floor, curled against the base of the couch, was Elena. Her dark hair fell across her face, but Lorenzo could see the blood on her lip. The way she cradled her ribs, the defensive hunch of her shoulders. She wore a faded waitress uniform, the name tag half torn off. She looked nothing like the girl he remembered, and exactly like her. "Get your hands off her!" Lorenzo's voice was cold, controlled. The voice that made grown men confess before he'd even touched them. The drunk, Darren, Lorenzo's mind supplied from some deep well of fury, spun around, wobbling slightly. His eyes struggled to focus. "Who the hell? This is my house, my wife. Get out before I—" He never finished the sentence. Lorenzo crossed the room in 3 strides and drove his fist into Darren's jaw with the full weight of 7 years of regret. Behind it, the man crumpled, crashing into a side table that splintered under his weight. Reed appeared in the doorway, gun ready, scanning the space. He took in the situation with one glance and moved to check the back rooms. Lorenzo knelt beside Elena. "Hey," he said softly. "It's me. It's Lorenzo." Her head snapped up, eyes wide, disbelief, fear, anger, and something else warring across her bruised face. "No!" The word came out broken. "No, you can't. You're not real." "I'm real." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, Unaez brushed her hair back from her face, his touch feather-light. "Lily came to me. She found me." Elena's expression shattered. "Is she safe?" Please tell me she's in my car with the doors locked. She's okay." The relief that flooded Elena's face was so profound it hurt to witness. She tried to push herself up, gasped in pain, and collapsed back. "Don't move," Lorenzo said. "You might have broken ribs." "I'm fine," but her voice shook. I have to get Lily and—" "Mommy!" The cry came from the doorway. Lily had somehow gotten out of the SUV, had somehow made it past Reed's oversight, and now she stood in the doorway, small and soaked and terrified. "Lily, no!" Elena tried to stand, failed. Lorenzo moved aside as the little girl rushed forward, throwing herself into her mother's arms with a sob. Elena held her tight, face buried in her daughter's wet hair, shoulders shaking. Over their heads, her eyes met Lorenzo's. In that look was 7 years of silence, 7 years of questions. And beneath it all, something neither of them was ready to name. Reed cleared his throat. "Boss, we should move. Neighbors might call the cops." Lorenzo stood, his decision already made. "We're taking them to the penthouse." Elena's head snapped up. "No, we're not going anywhere with you." "Elena, you think you can just show up after 7 years and act like—" Her voice broke. She clutched Lily tighter. "We're not your responsibility." "You became my responsibility the second Lily walked into my office." Lorenzo's voice was quiet but immovable. "You're bleeding, you're hurt, and that man," he gestured to Darren, who was groaning on the floor, "is going to wake up angry. I can handle—" "No, you can't." He didn't say it cruelly, just truthfully. "Not this time." Elena looked down at Lily, at her daughter's tear-streaked face, at the purple bruise forming on the child's arm, where Darren must have grabbed her. When she looked back up, her defiance had cracked. Not broken. Elena Martinez didn't break, but cracked enough to let reality in. "Just for tonight," she whispered. Lorenzo nodded. Just for tonight. It was a lie. They both knew it. But sometimes lies were easier than the truth. The penthouse was a different world. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Rain now a gentle patter against glass. Leather furniture, abstract art on exposed brick walls. A kitchen with marble countertops that probably cost more than Elena's entire house. Everything was clean lines and controlled space, the home of a man who trusted nothing he couldn't see coming. Elena sat stiffly on the edge of the couch, while Lorenzo's personal doctor, a thin, efficient man in his 60s, who asked no questions, cleaned the cut on her lip and checked her ribs. "Bruised, not broken," the doctor said quietly. "You're lucky. Another inch lower, and we'd be talking about internal bleeding." "Lucky?" Elena almost laughed. Lily sat beside her, refusing to let go of her mother's hand. The little girl's eyes were huge as she took in the apartment, this strange, impossible place they'd been brought to. "You live here?" she whispered to Lorenzo, who stood by the windows, giving them space. "Sometimes," he answered. "It's like a castle," Lily breathed. "More like a fortress," Elena muttered. Lorenzo's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. The doctor finished bandaging Elena's hand, prescribed rest and ice, and left with the same discretion he'd arrived with. Reed stood guard outside the door. Silence filled the space. Lily, exhausted beyond measure, had curled up against Elena's side, eyes drooping. Within minutes, she was asleep, small body finally relaxing after hours of terror. Elena carefully adjusted her daughter's position, tucking Lorenzo's jacket, still wrapped around the child, more securely around her shoulders. When she looked up, Lorenzo was watching them with an expression she couldn't read. "The guest room's down the hall," he said quietly. "There's clothes in the closet. My sister stays here sometimes. Should fit you." "You have a sister?" Elena couldn't help asking. She'd never met Lorenzo's family. He'd kept those worlds carefully separate. She moved to California 5 years ago, married a lawyer. Something flickered across his face. Got out clean. The implication hung heavy, unlike him. Elena carefully stood, scooping Lily into her arms. The little girl mumbled something, burrowing closer, and Elena's heart clenched. She'd tried so hard to protect this child, to build a life that was safe and normal, and in one night it had all come crashing down. She carried Lily down the hallway, Lorenzo trailing behind to show her the room. The guest bedroom was simple: queen bed with white linens, a dresser, blackout curtains, clean and impersonal. Elena laid Lily down gently, removing her wet shoes and pulling the blanket up to her chin. "Mommy?" Lily's eyes fluttered open. "Are we safe now?" "Yes, baby," Elena whispered, brushing hair from her daughter's forehead. "We're safe." "Is Mr. Lorenzo going to stay?" Elena's throat tightened. "For tonight." "Good." Lily's eyes drifted closed again. "I like him. He's strong like superheroes." Elena's chest ached. She waited until Lily's breathing evened out before standing and turning toward the door. Lorenzo stood in the hallway, far enough back to give them privacy, but close enough to have heard everything. They walked back to the living room in silence. Reed was waiting, phone in hand, expression grave. "Boss, we need to talk." He glanced at Elena, uncertain. Lorenzo nodded toward his office, a smaller room off the main space with a heavy wooden door. The two men stepped inside, but Elena could hear their voices, low and urgent. "Darren's not just a drunk," Reed was saying. "He owes money, serious money, to the Valenti family." Elena's blood went cold. Even she, who'd spent years trying to stay away from Lorenzo's world, knew that name. Matteo Valenti, the rival boss who controlled the docks and half the drug trade in the city. "How much?" Lorenzo's voice was hard. 70 grand, and my sources say Valenti's people have been asking questions. About Elena, about her connection to you. There was a pause, then Lorenzo's voice, dangerously quiet. "How long have they known?" "Can't say for sure, but if they know she matters to you, she's leverage. That's how Valenti operates." The door opened. Both men emerged, their faces set in grim lines. Elena stood, arms crossed defensively. "I heard everything." Lorenzo didn't apologize for the lack of privacy. "We're moving you and Lily to a safe house tomorrow morning, Vermont, somewhere nobody knows about." "No." "Elena." "I'm not running." Her voice shook but held firm. "I've been running my whole life. From my family, from poverty, from you." She took a breath. "I won't run anymore." "This isn't about pride. It's about survival." The words burst out of her. "You think I don't know what happens to people who get caught between mafia families? I've been watching it my whole life, Lorenzo. Watching good people disappear because they were in the wrong place, knew the wrong thing, loved the wrong person." Her voice broke on the last word. Lorenzo crossed the space between them in 2 strides. "Then you know why you need to let me protect you." "Your protection comes with a price," she said, looking up at him. It always does. Guards, secrets, lies. I didn't want this life for Lily. That's why I left. That's why I married Darren even though I didn't love him. Because at least he was nobody. Safe, normal. How'd that work out? Lorenzo's voice was harsh, immediately regretting it when she flinched. But she didn't back down. Better than raising her in your world. My world is the only thing standing between her and Valenti right now. They stared at each other, all the years of separation and words unsaid crackling between them like electricity. I won't let you turn us into prisoners, Elena said finally. And I won't let you walk into a grave. Reed cleared his throat. Boss, there's something else. He held out his phone, showing a series of text messages. Darren's been feeding information to Valenti's crew for weeks about Elena's routine, where she works, where Lily goes to school. Elena's knees went weak. Lorenzo's hand shot out, steadying her. He sold us out, she whispered. For drug money, he sold his own daughter. The rage that filled Lorenzo's eyes was terrible to behold. Where is he now? We left him at the house, probably still unconscious. Send someone to pick him up. I want him in the warehouse by morning. Elena grabbed his arm. Lorenzo, no, don't. Don't kill him. I'm not going to kill him. Lorenzo's voice was ice. I'm going to make sure he understands what happens when you betray my family. The word family hung in the air. Elena released his arm slowly. Is that what we are to you? Lorenzo met her gaze, and for the first time since she'd known him, she saw uncertainty flicker across his face. I don't know what you are, he said quietly, but I know I'm not letting you go, not again. It wasn't a declaration of love. It was darker than that, more possessive, edged with the kind of finality that should have terrified her. Instead, Elena felt something inside her chest, some wall she'd built carefully over 7 years, begin to crack. That night, sleep wouldn't come. Elena lay in the guest bed, Lily curled against her side, and stared at the ceiling. Every sound made her jump, the hum of the elevator, footsteps in the hallway, the distant rumble of the city below. Finally, she carefully extracted herself from Lily's grip and padded out into the hallway. The penthouse was dark except for a light coming from the balcony. Lorenzo stood outside, cigarette in hand, staring out at the city. The rain had stopped, leaving everything slick and glittering. Elena slid the glass door open. He didn't turn. Can't sleep either? His voice was rough. Too many thoughts. She joined him at the railing, keeping a careful foot of space between them. The night air was cool against her skin. They stood in silence for a long moment. Below them, the city moved. Cars, lights, people living their lives completely unaware of the violence and tenderness playing out far above their heads. I looked for you, Lorenzo said suddenly. After that night, after I realized what my father was really asking me to do, I came back for you, but you were gone. Elena's throat tightened. I waited 6 months. You never called, never wrote. I thought... She stopped, the old pain rising up. I thought you'd chosen them over me. I did. His honesty was brutal. For about 3 months, I convinced myself it was the right thing, that you deserved better than a criminal, that I was protecting you by staying away. He took a drag of his cigarette, and then I realized I was just a coward. So why didn't you try harder? I did. He turned to face her, and she saw the truth in his eyes. I called every number, talked to every friend, even went to your mother's house. Elena stiffened. You talked to my mother. She told me you'd moved, didn't say where. And she made it very clear that if I ever came back, she'd call the cops. He smiled without humor. She knew what I was becoming. She was trying to protect me, Elena whispered. From me. Yes. The word sat between them, heavy with truth. When did you find out? Lorenzo asked quietly. About Lily. Elena wrapped her arms around herself. 2 months after you disappeared. I was working double shifts at the diner, trying to save money to leave the city, and then I started getting sick every morning. She laughed, but it came out broken. I couldn't afford a test, so I went to the free clinic. They told me I was 8 weeks along. And you didn't try to contact me? How? She turned to face him, anger and hurt finally spilling over. You were a ghost, Lorenzo, no number, no address. And even if I could have found you, what was I supposed to say? Hey, remember that night we promised each other a future? Well, surprise, you're going to be a father. And by the way, your dad's a mob boss, and you're probably going to get me killed. Lorenzo flinched. I made a choice, Elena continued, voice shaking. To keep her, to raise her, to give her a normal life. And that meant staying as far away from you as possible. So you married Darren. I married Darren because he offered me stability. A name for my baby. He wasn't cruel then, just weak. I thought I could manage weak. Her voice dropped. I was wrong. Lorenzo stubbed out his cigarette, jaw clenched. When did he start hitting you? Lily's 2nd birthday. He lost his job, started drinking. I tried to leave once, but he found us. Said if I ran again, he'd make sure I never saw her again. That he'd tell social services I was an unfit mother. And you believed him? I was terrified. She met his eyes. Not for me. For, her. I couldn't risk losing her. Lorenzo's hands curled into fists. I would have killed him. I know. That's why I never reached out. They stared at each other, the weight of 6 years of missed chances and wrong choices pressing down on them both. She looks like you, Lorenzo said finally. Lily, she has your eyes. She has your stubbornness. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Poor kid. Despite everything, Elena felt the corners of her own mouth twitch. She asked about you tonight, before she fell asleep. Wanted to know if you were a good guy or a bad guy. What did you tell her? I said, you were complicated. Lorenzo laughed, short, sharp, surprised. That's one word for it. The moment stretched, something fragile forming between them in the dark. I need you to understand something, Lorenzo said, voice dropping to that dangerous quiet that made men confess their sins. I don't know how to be what you need. I don't know how to be a father. Hell, I barely know how to be human anymore. He took a step closer. But I know that little girl in there is mine. And that means she's under my protection. Forever. Lorenzo. Well, no. And so are you. His eyes burned into hers. Whether you want it or not. Whether you hate me or not. Valenti could have killed you tonight. Could have taken Lily. And I would have never known I had a daughter until I saw her face on the news. His voice broke on the last word. Elena's breath caught. She'd spent 7 years imagining this conversation. 7 years preparing her defenses, her arguments, her righteous anger. But she'd never prepared for this. Lorenzo King, the coldest man on the East Coast. standing in front of her with tears in his eyes, looking at her like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to earth. "I don't want your protection," she whispered. "I know. I don't want this life. I know that too. But Lily needs you." The words tore out of her. "She already loves you. I could see it in her eyes when she looked at you tonight, like you were some kind of hero." "I'm not a hero." "I know." Elena's voice was soft, "but maybe you could try to be, for her." Lorenzo closed the distance between them, and for one breathless moment, Elena thought he might kiss her. Instead, he raised his hand slowly, giving her time to pull away, and brushed his thumb gently across the bruise on her cheekbone. "Does it hurt?" "Everything hurts." But she didn't pull away from his touch. They stood there close enough to feel each other's warmth, the city lights casting long shadows around them. "I have to tell you something," Lorenzo said. "Reed did some digging. Darren didn't just sell information about you to Valenti. He sold you as payment for his debt." Elena's world tilted. "What?" "Valenti owns you now, in his mind, which means he's going to come for you." The fear that gripped her was primal. "When?" "I don't know, but it won't be tonight. He'll want to draw this out, make me sweat, make me make mistakes." Lorenzo's hand moved to cup her face, his touch gentle despite the violence in his words. "But I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Elena wanted to say no, wanted to grab Lily and run as far and fast as they could. But she was so tired of running. "I don't know," she whispered honestly. "That's fair." Lorenzo dropped his hand, stepping back. "But you don't have to trust me. You just have to let me keep you alive." He turned and walked back inside, leaving Elena alone on the balcony with the cold wind and the weight of impossible choices. 3 days passed. 3 days of careful routine. Elena helping Lily with schoolwork from the books Reed had retrieved from their house. Meals eaten at the long dining table, Lorenzo appearing and disappearing like a shadow. Reed stationed permanently outside the door. It felt like waiting for a storm. On the 4th morning, Elena woke to voices in the living room. She slipped out of bed, leaving Lily sleeping, and padded down the hallway. Lorenzo stood with Reed and 2 other men she didn't recognize, all of them bent over a tablet showing security footage. "Oh, spotted here and here," one of the men was saying, pointing. "Valenti's crew, they're casing the building." Elena's blood went cold. Lorenzo noticed her in the doorway, his expression hardening. "Go back to the room." "No," she stepped forward. "If they're coming for me, I deserve to know." "Elena, tell me." Lorenzo exchanged a glance with Reed, then gestured for the other men to leave. Once they were alone, he turned the tablet toward her. "This footage is from yesterday. Valenti's men have been watching the building. They know you're here." Elena's hands shook as she looked at the grainy images. Men in dark clothes, faces partially hidden, circling the block like wolves. "What do they want?" "Leverage." Lorenzo's voice was hard. "Me on my knees, control of my territory, everything I've built." "Then give it to them." The words burst out of her. "Give them whatever they want and let us go." "It doesn't work that way." "Why not?" "Because men like Valenti don't make deals." Reed spoke up, his voice flat. "They take everything and leave bodies behind." Elena sank into the nearest chair, the reality of their situation crushing down on her. "So what do we do?" "We move you," Lorenzo said. "Tonight, Vermont, like I said, Reed will take you. I'll stay here and handle Valenti." "No," Elena stood, her fear transmuting into anger. You're not splitting us up. Elena, what happens after you handle Valenti? Do we just wait in Vermont forever? Never come home? Never have a life? Her voice rose. You think Lily doesn't already know something's wrong? She's 6, Lorenzo, not stupid. She knows we're hiding. Then she's smarter than most adults, Lorenzo shot back. And she's alive. I'd like to keep it that way. By turning us into ghosts? By keeping you away from people who want to hurt you. I lived with someone who hurt me every day for 4 years. Elena's voice cracked. I survived that. I can survive this. This is different. How? How is this different? Because the violence is organized? Because the man pulling the trigger wears a nice suit? She stepped closer, fury and fear pouring out of her. You think I don't know what you are, Lorenzo? I've always known. And I've been terrified of you since the day we met. The words landed like bullets. Lorenzo went very still. But I'm more terrified of losing Lily, Elena continued, tears streaming down her face now. And if the only way to keep her safe is to trust you, then fine, I'll trust you. But don't you dare send us away like we're cargo to be stored. The silence that followed was deafening. Reed cleared his throat. Boss, she has a point. If they're already watching the building, moving them could be riskier. At least here we control the terrain. Lorenzo's jaw worked. He looked at Elena, really looked at her, and something in his expression shifted. You want to stay? His voice was rough. I want to stop running. If you stay, you follow my rules. No arguments, no exceptions. Elena lifted her chin. What rules? You don't leave this apartment without me or Reed. You don't answer the door. You don't go near the windows. And if I tell you to hide, you hide. Fine. And Lily gets the same protection, Elena interrupted. I know. They stared at each other, the air between them charged with something neither wanted to name. All right, Lorenzo said finally. You stay. But this only works if you trust me. I don't trust you, Elena said honestly, but I don't have a better option. It wasn't a declaration of faith, but it was a beginning. That afternoon, Lily sat at the kitchen counter, coloring while Elena made sandwiches. The little girl had been quieter since they'd arrived, more watchful. She missed her toys, her school, her friends. Mama? Lily's voice was small. Yes, baby? Are we going to live here forever? Elena's hands stilled on the knife. No, just for a little while. Is it because of Daddy Darren? The name made Elena's stomach turn. Partly. Lily was quiet for a moment, pressing her crayon hard against the paper. I'm glad we're not there anymore. He was scary. Elena's throat tightened. She'd tried so hard to shield Lily from the worst of it, sending her to her room when Darren came home drunk, teaching her to be quiet and small and invisible. But children saw everything. I'm sorry, Elena whispered, rounding the counter to kneel beside her daughter. I'm so sorry you had to see that. It's okay. Lily leaned into her mother's embrace. Mr. Lorenzo stopped him. He did. Is Mr. Lorenzo your friend? Elena hesitated. What was Lorenzo to her? Her first love? Her biggest mistake? The father of her child? He's someone I knew a long time ago. He looks at you funny, Lily said with the blunt honesty of children. Like he's sad and happy at the same time. Out of the mouths of babes. That's complicated, sweetheart. Adults say that a lot. Lily pulled back, studying her mother's face. But I think it just means you don't want to tell me the truth. Elena couldn't help but smile. You're too smart for your own good. You always say that. Lily returned to her coloring. I drew us, see? She held up the paper. 3 figures, a woman with long hair, a small girl holding her hand, and a tall man with dark marks on his arms. Lorenzo's tattoos rendered in black crayon. We look like a family, Lily said matter-of-factly. Elena's chest ached. Lily, I know Daddy Darren wasn't really my daddy. The little girl didn't look up from her drawing. I heard him yelling at you once. He said I wasn't his. Oh, honey, is Mr. Lorenzo my real daddy? The question hung in the air. Elena had known this moment would come eventually. She'd rehearsed what she'd say, how she'd explain. But all her careful words evaporated. Yes, she said simply, he is. Lily nodded as if this confirmed something she'd already suspected. I thought so. I have his eyes. You do. Does he know? He does now. Good. Lily picked up another crayon. I like him. He's not scary like Daddy Darren. He's scary like superheroes, like he'd only hurt bad people. Elena pulled her daughter close, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, feeling the small, steady heartbeat against her own. I hope you're right, she whispered. But in her heart, she wasn't sure. Late that night, Elena woke to the sound of voices. Angry voices. She slipped out of bed and crept to the door, easing it open just enough to hear. Can't keep them locked up here forever. Reed's voice strained. Valenti's not stupid. He knows we're waiting, and the longer we wait, the more time I have to prepare, Lorenzo cut in. Or the more time he has to plan something we can't see coming. What do you suggest? Meet with him, neutral territory, make a deal. There's no deal to make, Lorenzo said flatly. He wants my territory, he wants my business, and now he wants Elena because he knows she'll destroy me. Elena's breath caught. Then maybe it's time to think about walking away, Reed said quietly. From all of it. Silence. Then Lorenzo's voice, so low Elena had to strain to hear. And do what? Become a civilian. You think Valenti would let me retire? I think if you moved far enough, changed your name, kept your head down, they'd find me. You know they would. And then Elena and Lily would pay the price. So what's your plan? Wait for him to make a move and hope we can stop it? My plan, Lorenzo said, his voice taking on that cold, deadly quality Elena remembered from the night he'd walked into her house, is to make sure Matteo Valenti understands that touching my family means signing his death warrant. Elena closed the door silently, her heart hammering. She'd thought she understood what Lorenzo was. A criminal, a killer, a man shaped by violence. But hearing the steel in his voice, the absolute conviction, she realized she'd underestimated him. He wasn't going to negotiate. He was going to war. And she and Lily were the reason why. Bye. The attack came on the 7th day. Elena woke to the sound of shattering glass and Lily's scream. She bolted upright, reaching for her daughter. But Lily wasn't in bed. Lily! Elena's voice tore out of her throat. She ran into the living room and froze. The penthouse was chaos. Smoke billowed from somewhere, the acrid smell burning her lungs. 2 of Lorenzo's men lay on the floor, unconscious or dead, she couldn't tell. And in the center of the room stood a man she'd never seen before, holding Lily against his chest, one arm wrapped around the girl's waist, the other holding a gun to her head. Mommy! Lily sobbed, struggling. Don't move, the man said, his accent thick, Italian. Don't scream, or I paint the walls with her. Elena's world narrowed to a single point, her daughter's terrified face. Please, Elena whispered, please don't hurt her. Take me. Do whatever you want. Just let her go. The man smiled. A thing. Touching, but Valenti wants you both. Where was Lorenzo? Where was Reed? As if summoned by her thoughts, Lorenzo appeared in the doorway, leading from his office, gun drawn, face carved from stone. Behind him, Reed and 3 others fanned out, weapons ready. Let her go, Marco. Lorenzo's voice was eerily calm. This is between Valenti and me. The child has nothing to do with it. The child is your weakness, Marco said. Valenti sends his regards. Everything happened at once. Marco's finger tightened on the trigger. Elena screamed and lunged forward. Lorenzo fired. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Marco's head snapped back, blood spraying, and he crumpled. Elena dove, catching Lily as the little girl fell, pulling her tight against her chest, turning her face away from the body, away from the blood, away from everything. Don't look, baby. Don't look. I've got you. I've got you. Lily was screaming, her small body shaking, hands clawing at her mother's shirt. Lorenzo crossed the room in 3 strides, kneeling beside them. Are you hurt? Either of you? Elena couldn't speak. She just shook her head, clutching Lily tighter. Boss, Reed appeared, breathing hard. There were 4 of them. We got 3. The 4th got away. Then he'll report back to Valenti that his message was received. Lorenzo's voice was ice. Double the guard. I want eyes on every entrance. And get the cleaners here, now. He turned back to Elena, his mask slipping for just a moment. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. They shouldn't have gotten this close. You killed him. Elena's voice came out distant, shocked. Right in front of her. I saved her. Elena couldn't finish, because he was right. If he'd hesitated even a second longer, Lily would be dead. But God, the blood, the sound, the way Lily was still screaming, inconsolable. Let me take her, Lorenzo said gently. Let me. No. Elena stood, Lily wrapped around her like a koala. No, we're leaving, right now. I don't care where, I don't care how. But we're not staying here another second. Elena, you promised you'd keep us safe. Her voice broke. You promised. And I did. She's alive. You're alive. She just watched you kill a man. Elena was crying now, tears mixing with smoke and fear. She's 6 years old, Lorenzo. 6, and you just saved her life. They stared at each other across an impossible divide. Lily's sobs had quieted to hiccups, but she wouldn't look at anything, wouldn't let go of Elena. Reed, Lorenzo said, not taking his eyes off Elena. Get the car ready. We're moving them. Where? The safe house, the one even Valenti doesn't know about. Boss, that's your final fallback. I don't care. Do it. Reed nodded and disappeared. Elena sank onto the couch, still holding Lily, rocking her gently. It's okay, baby. It's okay. We're leaving. We're going somewhere safe. Lorenzo knelt in front of them, careful to keep his blood-stained hands visible, non-threatening. Lily, he said softly, can you look at me? The little girl shook her head, face buried in Elena's neck. Lily, he tried again, I know you're scared. I know what you saw was. He paused, searching for words. Bad, really bad. But that man was going to hurt you, and I couldn't let that happen. Slowly, so slowly, Lily turned her head just enough to peek at him with one eye. "You shot him," she whispered. "I did. Are you going to shoot us?" The question landed like a physical blow. "No," Lorenzo said, his voice cracking. "Never. I would never hurt you or your mom. I promise you that." "Promises don't mean anything," Lily said with heartbreaking wisdom. "Daddy Darren promised he'd stop yelling, but he didn't." Lorenzo's jaw clenched. "I'm not him." "How do I know?" "Out of the mouths of babes." Lorenzo looked at Elena, lost. She'd never seen him like this powerful, dangerous man, completely undone by a child's question. Elena took a breath. "Because, she said gently, "Mr. Lorenzo has never lied to you, not once. And because he saved you tonight. He could have let that bad man take you, but he didn't." "Because he had to," Lily said. "You said he's my daddy. Daddies have to save their kids." The word hung in the air. Lorenzo's expression crumbled, just for a second, just enough for Elena to see the raw, desperate hope underneath all that ice. "That's right," he said hoarsely. "I'm your daddy, and daddies protect their little girls, no matter what." Lily studied him with those two old eyes. Then slowly she reached out one small hand. Lorenzo took it gently, his large, scarred hand completely engulfing hers. "Okay," Lily whispered, "but no more shooting." "I can't promise that," Lorenzo said honestly, "but I can promise I'll only do it to keep you safe." It wasn't enough, but it was all he had to offer. Elena stood. "We should go." The safe house was a cabin, 2 hours north of the city, hidden in dense forest, accessible only by a gravel road that wound through trees like a secret. It was small, 2 bedrooms, a living room with a stone fireplace, a kitchen that looked like something from the 1970s. Nothing like the penthouse. Elena put Lily to bed in the smaller bedroom, staying with her until the little girl finally exhausted herself into sleep. Then she stood in the doorway, watching her daughter's chest rise and fall, and felt something inside her break. She'd failed as a mother, as a protector. She'd brought this violence into Lily's life, first by marrying Darren, then by running to Lorenzo. Some choices had no good options. She found Lorenzo on the porch, sitting on the steps, smoking. The forest was alive with sound. Crickets, owls, wind through leaves. "She asleep?" he asked without turning. Finally, Elena sat beside him, keeping a careful distance. "She's going to have nightmares." "I know. She'll need therapy. I'll pay for it." Elena laughed, sharp, bitter. "You think you can fix this with money?" "No." Lorenzo stubbed out his cigarette. "But it's all I have to offer." They sat in silence, the weight of the day pressing down on them. "I thought about running," Elena said finally. "Tonight, while you were dealing with everything. I thought about taking Lily and just disappearing." "Why didn't you?" "Because there's nowhere to run." She looked at him. "Is there? Valenti will find us eventually. And next time, you won't be there to stop him." "I'll always be there." "You can't promise that." "Watch me." Elena shook her head. "This is why I left 7 years ago. Because this is what you do. You make promises you can't keep. You build these walls and fortresses and think that's the same as being safe. But it's not. It's just a cage." "Then what do you want from me?" Lorenzo's voice rose. "Tell me what you want, Elena, because I'm trying, God, I'm trying, but I don't know how to be what you need." "I don't need you to be anything." The words burst out of her. I need you to let us go. Really, let us go. Not to Vermont or a safe house, or anywhere else you control. Just let us disappear. Lorenzo stood, pacing the porch like a caged animal. I can't. Why not? Because you're mine. He whirled to face her, and the raw emotion in his voice stopped her cold. Both of you. Maybe that makes me a monster. Maybe that makes me obsessed or possessive or any of the other things you think I am. But I will not, I cannot, let you walk back into danger. Then what's your solution? Keep us locked up forever? If that's what it takes. Elena stood, fury and exhaustion warring inside her. You don't get to decide that. I already have. They glared at each other, and Elena saw it clearly. This was never going to work. Not because Lorenzo didn't care, but because he cared too much in all the wrong ways. I'm taking Lily and leaving in the morning, she said quietly. You can try to stop me, but you won't. Because despite everything, I know you're not Darren. You're not Valenti. You're just a man who never learned how to love without controlling. She turned to go back inside. I loved you, Lorenzo said, his voice raw. 7 years ago, I loved you more than I've ever loved anything in my life. Elena stopped, her hand on the doorframe. And I left anyway, he continued, because I thought that's what would keep you safe. That's what would give you a chance at a normal life. And every day since, I've regretted it. Every single day. Elena's shoulders shook. She didn't turn around. So yeah, Lorenzo said, maybe I don't know how to love without controlling. Maybe I'm damaged beyond repair. But I know this. I would rather die than let Valenti take you. And if that makes me a monster, then fine. I'm a monster. But I'm a monster who loves you. The confession hung in the night air. Elena turned slowly. You don't get to say that. Not after everything. I know. You don't get to walk back into my life and claim us like we're territory to be won. I know. You can't fix 7 years of silence with violence and grand gestures. I know that too. Lorenzo met her eyes. But I'm not trying to fix the past. I'm trying to build a future where Lily gets to grow up. Where you get to be happy, even if I'm not part of it. Elena's breath caught. What? When this is over, when Valenti's dealt with, I'll set you up anywhere you want. New names, new life, money to start over. His voice was steady, resolved. You'll never have to see me again. And Lily, she can know who I am, or not. That's your choice. The words clearly cost him. But she'll be protected, always, from a distance. Elena stared at him, this man who'd terrorized her dreams for 7 years, who'd saved her life, who'd just offered to give her exactly what she'd asked for. And she realized she didn't want it. You're an idiot, she whispered. Lorenzo's brow furrowed. What? You're an idiot if you think I want you out of Lily's life. Elena crossed the porch, closing the distance between them. She needs her father, not your money, not your protection from afar. You. Elena, but I need you to understand something. She looked up at him, unflinching. If you're going to be in our lives, really in our lives, then you have to be more than just Lorenzo King, the mafia boss. You have to be a man, a father, someone who doesn't solve every problem with a gun. I don't know if I can do that. Then learn. Her voice softened. For her, for me. Learn to be more than what your father made you. Lorenzo's hand came up, hesitant, and touched her cheek. the same gentle touch from that night on the balcony. And if I fail, then we'll figure it out. Elena's eyes filled with tears. But you have to try. That's all I'm asking. Just try. The distance between them disappeared. Lorenzo kissed her, soft, tentative, nothing like the desperate passion of their youth. This was different, older, weighted with all the years and pain and impossible choices that had brought them here. When they pulled apart, Elena rested her forehead against his chest, feeling his heartbeat. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "Me too. What if we can't make this work? Then at least we'll fail together." It wasn't a promise of forever. It wasn't a guarantee of happiness. But it was honest, and maybe that was enough. 3 months later, the house was smaller than the penthouse, but infinitely warmer. A suburban 2-story with a yard, a swing set that Lorenzo had assembled himself, badly, then hired someone to fix, and neighbors who waved but didn't ask questions. Elena stood in the kitchen, making breakfast, the morning sun streaming through the windows. On the radio, some inspirational song about new beginnings played softly. Footsteps thundered down the stairs. Lily appeared, backpack already on, her hair in the braids Elena had done the night before. "Is Dad taking me to school?" she asked. The word Dad still made Elena's chest tight. But Lily had started using it naturally about a month ago, and Lorenzo had looked like he might cry the first time he heard it. "He said he would," Elena replied, "but he might be late. He had a meeting this morning." "With the business people?" "Yes." Lily nodded, accepting this. She knew her father worked in import-export. A bland, safe lie that would hold for a few more years at least. Lorenzo appeared in the doorway, already dressed, looking almost normal in jeans and a button-down. The tattoos were still there, the dangerous edge still visible in his eyes. But he'd been trying, really trying. "Ready, kiddo?" he asked. "Born ready!" Lily grinned and ran to hug him. Lorenzo scooped her up, tossing her over his shoulder as she squealed with laughter. "Let's go before your mom makes us eat healthy cereal." "I heard that," Elena called, but she was smiling. At the door, Lorenzo paused, Lily still hanging upside down. He met Elena's eyes. "I'll be back by noon. Reed's handling the afternoon shift." "Okay." She crossed to him, rising on her toes to kiss him. "Drive safe." "Always." It was a lie. Lorenzo King had never driven safely in his life, but it was their lie, and that made it somehow okay. After they left, Elena stood in the quiet kitchen, sipping her coffee, and thought about how far they'd come. Valenti was gone, dealt with in ways she'd chosen not to ask about. Darren had signed divorce papers from whatever hole Lorenzo had stashed him in, and had wisely decided not to pursue custody. The nightmares had faded, not gone. Gone, but manageable. Lily saw a therapist twice a week, and Elena had started going too. And Lorenzo was learning to be present without being controlling, learning to show love without violence, learning that being a father meant showing up for school plays and scraped knees and bedtime stories, not just emergencies. It wasn't perfect. There were still arguments, still moments when Elena saw that cold, dangerous man rising to the surface, still nights when Lorenzo disappeared into his office for business and came back with blood on his hands that he thought she didn't notice. But there were also mornings like this, quiet, normal, almost mundane. And somehow, that felt like the most romantic thing of all. Her phone buzzed, a text from Lorenzo. Lily says she needs poster board for a project. Any idea what she's talking about? Elena smiled. Science fair. It's in the parent email I forwarded you, that you didn't read. There are too many emails. There are 3 a week. Exactly, too many. I'll get the poster board. What color? Ask her. She said, surprise me. This feels like a trap. Elena laughed out loud. Get white. It's always safe. You're my hero. I love you. The words still made her breath catch. He said them now, carefully, sparingly, like he was still learning the shape of them in his mouth. Love you too, she typed back. And she meant it. Not the desperate, naive love of 17. Not the fairy tale romance she'd dreamed of as a girl. This was messier, harder, built on broken pieces glued back together with trust that was still fragile, still being tested every day. But it was real, and it was theirs. Nani. That evening, they sat on the back porch while Lily played in the yard, chasing fireflies in the dusk. Lorenzo's arm was around Elena's shoulders, her head resting against his chest. Reed called, Lorenzo said quietly. Wanted to know if I'm coming back. Elena stiffened. Back to what? The business, full time. He was quiet for a moment. I've been stepping back, letting others handle more, trying to be less involved. Is that possible in your world? I don't know, but I'm trying to find out. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Because this, right here, this is what I want. Not power, not territory, just this. Look, Mama, I caught one. Lily's voice carried across the yard, her hands cupped carefully around a glowing firefly. That's beautiful, baby, Elena called back. But remember to let it go. Lily nodded and opened her hands, watching the firefly lift into the darkening sky. She's happy, Lorenzo said softly. She is. Are you? Elena thought about it, really thought, about the fear that still lived in her chest, the uncertainty of their future, the knowledge that Lorenzo's past would always be part of their present, but also about the way he'd learned to braid Lily's hair, the way he showed up every day trying to be better than he was, the way he looked at both of them like they were the only real things in his world. Yeah, she said finally. I think I am. It wasn't a perfect ending. There would be more struggles, more moments of doubt, more times when they'd have to choose between the life they wanted and the reality they'd inherited. But they were choosing each other, and that felt like its own kind of redemption. Lorenzo's hand found hers, fingers intertwining. On the ring finger of her left hand, a simple silver band caught the last light of day. Not an engagement ring, not yet, but a promise. A symbol of commitment that they were building together, one careful day at a time. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For giving me a chance, for letting me try, for... His voice roughened. For her, for not keeping her from me. She's your daughter, Elena said simply. You deserved to know her. I don't deserve either of you. Probably not. Elena smiled. But you're stuck with us anyway. Lily ran up to the porch, breathless and glowing with joy. Can we make s'mores, please? Dad said he knows how to start a fire. Dad knows how to start too many fires, Elena said dryly. Lorenzo grinned. But this one will be controlled and safe. Famous last words. But she helped him gather wood anyway, and soon they had a small fire going in the metal pit in the yard. They roasted marshmallows, Lily's burning immediately, Lorenzo's somehow perfect, Elena's slightly undercooked because she was too impatient. As night fell completely, stars began to appear overhead. Lily sat between her parents, sticky with marshmallow and chocolate, talking about her day, her friends, her dreams. And for the first time in 7 years, Elena felt something she'd almost forgotten. Peace. Not the absence of danger, not the promise of a perfect future, but the quiet knowledge that they were together, that they'd chosen each other, that whatever came next, they'd face it as a family. Lorenzo met her eyes over Lily's head, and she saw her own thoughts reflected back at her. This strange, broken, beautiful thing they'd built from the wreckage of their past. It wasn't the story either of them had expected, but maybe that's what made it worth telling. Thank you for spending this hour with Lorenzo, Elena, and Lily's story. If their journey toward healing and hope touched your heart, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What moment resonated most with you? And if you're looking for more stories about love, redemption, and second chances, subscribe so you never miss a new chapter. Until tomorrow night, may you find your own moments of peace. Sweet dreams.